What's up, Tiger fans? Welcome back to the Streak Speak for episode 6. I'm super excited about our guest today, Mr. Terry Porter, who is an athletic director specializing in compliance here at Towson. And the special thing about Terry is that he was the first guy I gave a call about this idea. We tried to figure out what to do, how we were going to manage it, and we finally narrowed it down to this. And he said he'd be on any time, so I hit him up last week. Here we are hitting him with a couple questions today about all he's been through and all the new things in the NCAA. So we'll start off with your career path, because you graduated with a degree in biology and chemistry and didn't hit sports management until grad school. So how did you end up in this career path, and why did you end up at Towson eventually?
Oh, great question. So I do have an undergrad degree in biology. So once I got out of undergrad, I worked in a lab for about a year and a half and just realized that I wanted something a little more dynamic. I didn't want the same thing over and over and over again. And it was, in that job was all about routine. Right. So I decided to go out on faith and went to grad school. And while in grad school, I interned at Vanderbilt University. And that's kind of where I got my first start in college athletics. Sure. Got some great experience in compliance. And from that point, it kind of kicked my career off to where I went to University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. From there to University of South Carolina. And then, my wife got a great opportunity. She finished up her PhD, got a great opportunity up here in Maryland, and was able to find something at Loyola, Maryland, and got promoted within 9 months. And then 3 years later, I'm here at Towson. Been here 4 years and enjoying every minute of it.
Sure. Let's hit on that South Carolina point for a second, because we had a familiar face there. Yeah. Obviously ended up here. So talk to us a little bit about your dynamic between you and Dr. Eigenbrock when you were there, if there was any at all. I know there was a little bit of overlap.
Yeah, so there was a little bit of overlap. I was there from 2012 to 2015. And so we worked together for about 3 years. Now, having a bigger staff, we didn't work together that much. Right. But I saw him around the office, knew him a little bit, did some happy hours, that sort of deal. Yeah. So and then having him here on board has been great for the past few months.
Sure, and he was obviously our first guest, and he spoke a lot about the balance between this position and what you do with family. So go a little bit about your family, your two boys, and how much you get to see them and how much they're around all of us and what that dynamic looks like for you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, one of my core values is family, and not just my own family and bringing them around the university, around the department to games and whatnot, but also about treating other people like family. Sure. I feel like if you treat your colleagues like family, then you end up giving people grace like you do with your own family. Right. But anyways, my family, I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. They are, they're starting their sports right now. Yeah. They're both playing soccer at the moment and both doing really well in school. So awesome. Both boys. So my house is loud and dirty all the time.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I get it. I got a little brother too, and we hit our stride a little bit. He's 2 years younger, so I'm sure that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. But in terms of what we're doing here, it seems like you have the most extracurriculars out of anybody that you're juggling all the time. So this is your first year as the SAC rep on the administrative side. What has that been like, and what are some of our goals within SAC? I mean, obviously I represent a little bit, but just from your perspective, what does it all mean to you?
Oh, man. Well, first off, what in terms of that extracurricular activity, Bryce, I'll tell you, man, that is the easiest part of my job. Yeah. With such great leadership, I'm not just saying that because you're here, but with such great leadership with your all's exec team, it's been really easy on me. I mean, my job there is to honestly to provide a space for you all to provide leadership to the department, provide resources, and then be a fly on the wall and step back and not really step in, because SAC isn't mine. It's not my organization. It's your all's organization. But as an organization, I think there are a few different goals that I feel like you guys have. One obviously is the community service. I think I hear Brendan Farr, our SAC president. He talks about how he wants to win Helper. Yes. And he talks about it all the time. Yeah. And then we have, I guess, with TU8, I think that the anti-racism pledge that they put together has been great. And we're going to be sending it out to our staff. We already sent it out to our student athletes. Right. So there's a few different goals, and I believe that we can reach all of them.
Yeah. And then your main job description, compliance.
Yeah.
That's a big, hairy mess to a lot of people because they don't always know what that entails. So break that down for those that don't know what you kind of balance and what you kind of manage with what we can and can't do and all that kind of stuff. What does that all look like from your perspective?
Yeah, so compliance. I mean, the first thing I tell people is that we're not the police.
Right.
We're not going outside. We're not hiding behind bushes trying catch people in care hour violations or anything like that, we're part of the team. The first thing I did when I got here is I went to our athletics director at the time and I said, hey, I want to change the name of this office from Compliance Office to Office of Compliance Services. We want to be a service-oriented office because we want to make sure that this department is staying student-athlete centered, coach-led, and staff-supported. And as a compliance officer, that it's my job to help support our coaches and our staff and our student-athletes. But we do that by monitoring. So we are monitoring different things, whether it be through ARMS, software, recruiting, care, whatever it is. We do that by educating, and we do that by being accessible, making sure that our student athletes know exactly where my office is. Heck, I'd say probably 80% of them have my cell phone number. And just making sure that we're providing a service to our student athletes and our staff. Yeah,
and then just beyond that, you work on a national level as well. You're one of 5 representatives on the NCAA Reinstatement Committee. So who else is on that committee, and what kind of things do you guys deal with? What's something relevant that's kind of come across your desk?
Yeah, so it's myself. We have the lead compliance person at Ohio State, UNC Chapel Hill, Florida Gulf Coast, and Duquesne. And so the type of cases that we see, well, first I'll go back. So when there's a violation that takes place, and a student athlete goes from being an amateur to at that point losing their amateurism, then they have to be reinstated back into being an amateur in order to be eligible again. Also, let's say someone exhausts eligibility, they're looking for an additional year, they have to have that year reinstated. So we look at different cases, whether it be medical issues, someone may be signing with an agent, and so we probably see, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 cases a week.
Sure. And on the ever-changing scope of the national level of NCAA athletics, there have been so many different topics, and they're always in the news. And the biggest thing that I kind of wanted to provide with when I first had this idea was, how do we get the people that know about it actually talking about it? Because you got Jay Billis and all these talking heads everywhere, which they all have great points to make, but nobody comes to the people that are in the fight, in my opinion. So when it comes to, we'll start with the Alston case, and that being 2021, that Supreme Court case. Break that down in those changes for us, and then we'll hop into NIL after that. But for the Alston case first, what does that mean for us as athletes?
Yeah, so the Alston case, just a little bit of background on that. So what that is there's a couple of student athletes who led this case. Shane Alston's one of them from West Virginia. And after about 6 years, eventually in 2021, the Supreme Court decided that the NCAA and their membership could no longer limit educational related benefits for student athletes or for students in general. So as a result, student athletes are now eligible to receive up to like $59.80 per year and unlimited education benefits. Now, what that means for us at this moment, we're not sure. Obviously, we're working through it as a department. But the CAA did announce that starting in 2023-24, that the CAA the CAA schools all schools will have an opportunity for their men and women's basketball programs would have an opportunity to provide Alston payments to those student athletes. In terms of what else, what does that mean? Not sure at this moment, but we are working through that at this moment.
Right. And one of my favorite topics to talk about that's been in the scope, like I said, the name, image, likeness legislation. From my perspective, it was such a big issue, but everybody looks at it from the basketball and football lens, which is great. But those are the only athletes really across the board that are here on 100%, full rides. So when people talk about it as a national issue and they went through and they said, well, isn't free school enough? I think people forget that most of us aren't here on free school because we have so many scholarships for more spots in almost every other sport. So in my perspective, it was a fantastic thing that we could do. So what are some misconceptions that you've seen that aren't really true about NIL that you would kind of debunk and kind of provide benefits for what it actually is for all of us, just beyond the top dogs? Yeah.
So the first thing I would say I would debunk is that everyone thinks that athletic departments are rolling in money. I would say on average, there's only about 15 to 20 schools that are actually pulling like big time profit. And so also the other thing I'll say that in terms of NIL is that people also think that student athletes are now employees of the university. That is not the case either. It's more like the Olympic model. I like to liken it to someone, let's say like Michael Phelps back during the Olympics, where if you look at the relay team, Michael Phelps was a millionaire based on endorsements, whereas the rest of the team may not be nearly as close to him in terms of his salary. It's the same thing here with college athletics now with NIL. I've been saying it from the jump. I felt like we should have the Olympic model for our student athletes, and finally we have it. I think you all should be able to benefit from your name, image, likeness, and as of July 21, you guys are now able to.
Yeah, and I think there were a couple of simple examples that at least I saw. There was a football player that would go sing country songs in bars, and he couldn't even use his name, you know?
Yeah.
And the thing that was, I guess, frustrating to us was that, you know, you could be a talented writer and just a student and publish a book.
Absolutely.
And if you're a student athlete, all of a sudden you can't do that. You can't make that money. So when people look at it in the mess that it is and the boosters and the football and all that, I get it. But across the board, people don't understand that we can finally do more things that other students could do all along, which I think is one of the biggest benefits. But on a Towson scale, what are we kind of implementing to get more of our athletes in this way, and how are we including local businesses, and what have we kind of come up with to help our athletes be really present in this new era?
Yeah, so when it first started in July of 21, well, I guess we started before the legislation was approved. We started maybe in April of 21 and started to figure out, like, what can we do here at Towson to help our student athletes and continue to provide resources and education to our student athletes. So we created a program called Future, where we partner with some of our campus constituents, whether it be ETU, CLC and licensing, just a few different offices on campus to be able to provide resources and education to our student athletes.
Sure.
We provided education sessions on how to run a camp, how to build your brand. We partner with influencer in terms of how to build your brand on social media. And on top of that, this year we actually have the opportunity here in the state of Maryland where we can be involved in the name, image, likeness opportunities for our student athletes, where not many states have that opportunity.
Yeah.
So because of that, we decided we're going to start an NIL directory, a way to streamline our student athletes and communication from local businesses with our student athletes.
Right.
We've taken these directories, we sent it out to local businesses, our sponsors and whatnot, and in hopes that this will help drive some business to our student athletes and help them out.
Sure, absolutely. And from your perspective, this is now becoming a recruiting case because Baltimore is involved in the Mid-Atlantic area where there are so many businesses. What would you say to a high school athlete who's kind of learning about this, that why they should come to Towson and make it happen here, because we do have so much to offer?
Oh, I would say the first thing I bring up to people is that Towson has everything. I feel like you can come here if you want that small town college feel. You have that right here in downtown Towson. If you want a more rural setting, just go north, 10 minutes and you're in a more rural setting.
Exactly.
If you want the big city feel, you go south in 10 minutes, you're in the big city. So I feel like there's so many different opportunities for student athletes here, whether it's educationally, whether it's NIL, and obviously athletically.
Yeah, absolutely. So the final question that I have for you, we end everyone the same way, like I've always said. What have you done today to make Towson Athletics a better place than it was yesterday?
Man, biggest thing is APR. I feel like I've been looking at a computer screen all day, just looking at APR, clicking buttons and whatnot, trying to figure things out and making sure we have the best score possible. And figuring out adjustments, finding mitigating circumstances to ensure that there's no stone left unturned. Yeah. So that's what my day has been like, and continue to bring positive energy into this department. Yep. And do everything I can to help you guys out.
Awesome. Well, we feel it. Thank you for joining us as always. Thank you for tuning in. Look forward to seeing you again next week. Hopefully back with another athlete. Go Tigers, and we will see you soon.